Good afternoon and good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Colleen. Good morning, Howard, Tyler, Dan. Hey, guys.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Andrew, Robert.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Give everybody a minute to pop on. Anybody have any amazing success stories you want to share before we get started? And I know you do, so everybody's shy, huh? Tiffany, you have an amazing story, right?
Franco?
Tiffany, yeah, you helped bring a team member on. You're getting a lot of business and building a great relationship, I see.
With Tinton Falls, I definitely have a special group there, and I appreciate being able to work with them. But I'll tell you, the success story for any mortgage rep this year was being able to lock their pipeline in under 7%. I was going to say that, but I didn't want to, jump in on the real estate conversation. But these last 2 weeks have been hard, and so if you were able to get your pipeline locked in and get your people under 6 and secure those pre-approvals, that is a success story in itself for sure.
So all right, now you're on the spot. You have to explain what that means.
So this has been probably one of the most volatile markets that I've ever experienced over the last 3 weeks. I mean, we had a Friday 3 weeks ago where the interest rates literally shot up by like 90 basis points. So if you have a floating pipeline, which most mortgage reps do, we float our pipeline and we watch to see when it's most advantageous to lock in. You had all your pipeline in the 6s, which means they were qualified to own 6s. So with the increased rate, and it was rapid and extreme, you're now in the 7s, and you have all these pipeline of people that were floating, basically pre-approved in the 6s. So it's a win for us on our side, on the mortgage side. If you were able to lock that pipeline in and make good on your word on the rate and the payment and make the realtors happy as far as nothing changing, that is a huge success. For a lot of mortgage reps that don't manage their pipeline properly or don't have the tenure to understand that you need to be watching the market constantly, they're scrambling. They're absolutely scrambling. So Daniel Coyle's team, we have a Zoom every single Tuesday morning. And last Tuesday, I was screaming, and imploring them that if I'm not the one on those pre-approvals, if you're working with mortgage reps and you have a pre-approval, whether it's a listing or a buy side, you need to go back to that mortgage person and make sure that either they're locked, and if they're not locked, that they qualify at the floating rate, because the 30-year fix is, 7 1/8, 7 1/4. You have your FHA DPA loans, which are still sitting at 6.5, but literally 2 weeks ago, it was at 5.99. And then obviously you have your jumbo loans, which are generally about a quarter higher. So in my world, it's all about managing the pipeline to make sure that your files get to closing. And if you're a listing agent referring me for the buyer of that property, which happens sometimes as well, I need to make sure that both sides are working towards the goal of getting to the table. But I have to say one thing real quick in regards to all of this. Before even knowing that today's talk was about power words, I basically have affirmations, and I'm sure a lot of you guys do this as salespeople, but you wake up and you give yourself an affirmation for the day, right? So your power words, I put a little word of in the middle within a parentheses, which is power of words. And so my affirmation for today was do not be a Debbie Downer, because in something like the environment we're in now, it's so easy to get caught up. And if I'm the mortgage rep that you're referring your client to, and I pick up the phone and I say, yep, rates are at 7 1/4. I don't know what you're going to qualify for today. I mean, you might as well just wait until the spring, right? So that's putting not your best foot forward. Or you say, guess what? It's okay that rates are around 7%. We're still going to find a product for you that's going to work, and we're going to get you into the house that you want to get into. And that's also where being a tenured mortgage rep comes into play, with knowing how to think outside the box, financing that might be non-QM, which is non-qualifying, figuring out little tricks of the trade as a tenured loan officer does, where maybe they now have to pay for their mortgage insurance up front and not monthly. So this is a really crucial time for all realtors to make sure that they're.
Tiffany, I'm gonna mute everybody because there's background noise, then you can unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I would say is my advice for today, for all the realtors that are on the call, and specifically my branch, my teams, you need to make sure you go through your pipeline of listings and buyers to make sure that your pre-approvals are solid and sound, since the interest rates have literally gone up a point in about 9 days. And don't be a Debbie Downer. You know, like, this is a really hard time for our industry. All of the changes you guys are going through, all of the changes that we're going through, the volatility of the market. Try very hard to, you know, vent to your friends and not to your customers. And, you know, they feel your vibe. They totally feel your vibe. So if you are positive and letting them feel comfortable to know, listen, this is just what it is. You know, a 7% is better than a 13%. I've been in the business 26 years. I just came off the cusp of that 11, 12, 13% way back when. So, you know, the scenario could always be worse. So it's really the power of words and the power words that you're using. It's so crucial because it literally sets the tone for the entire transaction. So I'm interested for this call today, Rob. I'm excited to see what you have to say. It's a topic that I'm excited to hear about. And again, if anybody has any questions or you want to discuss anything, let me know. I'm here.
I do have a question to ask. I'm Sandy. Hi, I just want to see for down payment 30% and 40%, they do have big difference, right?
So there's definitely a difference in rate and product and investor based on the down payment amount, the type of dwelling they're purchasing, whether it's single family, townhouse, condo, co-op, it's all different, and FICO score. So that's really, it's so hard to give a blanket interest rate. So when I say it's 7.25, 7 1/8, that's sort of a generalization, but every single file is assessed with their particular risk factors. So yes, a 30% or 40% down will certainly be different than a rate of a 5% down.
Yeah, for right now, my clients is like this kind of situation. They have money for 40% down payment, so they can get a better rates. But the thing is, the lender said if you do, when the bank gonna send someone to do, what is it called, the appraisal, if they didn't, it's to, because the price was 770, that's the offer get accepted. It's under contract right now. If they didn't appraise to that price, then if, let's say they only did like 730, 740,000, so they're gonna short of money for 40% because they are not gonna get that much loan.
Right. So Sandy, I'm going to ask you to just take that one offline because part of this is the solution-oriented mindset that you need to have to be successful in this business. And I would say another power word that you have is be grateful for the problems that you have, because without them, we would get paid $8 an hour if we didn't have skill sets that demonstrate the value that we provide.
Right.
Okay,
Just
so
to
that,
add that real quick, Sandy, you can call me when the call
Okay.
is over, but I would ask the lender to look into an appraisal waiver for you since you're putting so much money down. That's what I would do next. And I'll welcome a call after this call.
Okay.
so Sandy, as you you go through your journey, you get more experience, you're going to align yourself with people who that they elevate your confidence level to the point where you're going to figure out how to get through all these challenges. And when you've been in the business long enough, we all have challenges, and you know, we all have days that really seem pretty crappy. And when we surround ourselves with, you know, people with positive attitudes, not the Debbie Downers, then, you know that there's a solution for it. And sometimes, you know, I've been at a problem, I work on it all day long, right? And then the next morning I wake up and it's so apparent to me how to solve that problem. It was just too close the day before. I don't know if anybody's ever had that experience where you're like trying to figure it out, and then all of a sudden you have an epiphany in the morning and you're like, this is so easy, I can get this done. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to share my screen for just a quick minute here, and this is all available to you on the the link that's attached to the mastermind that you got out. But, you know, why do we do this? Okay, and a lot of this stuff is stuff I kind of cherry picked from different people that I follow. But, you know, I think your personal, your family life, your physical health, mental health, spiritual health, and financial health. Those are the reasons why we do what we do, right? And I'm going to talk about like some of the, you know, the power, the 16 keywords, as Mike Ferry put it, and I kind of put them as power words or phrases, and I'm going to add a lot of additional ones that have significant meaning to me personally. And this is a couple hours of listening to Mike Ferry on the airplane and absorbing the data, but he talks about commitment. And he actually goes through and he looks at the dictionary definition of commitment. Okay, so from your business life, if you lack commitment, does anybody think that you have any reasonable expectation to be successful? I'd say absolutely not. And commitment, we all know what that means, but it's the attitude. Commitment as far as work is the attitude of someone who works very hard to support what they want to accomplish. That's commitment. Okay, it's not about shortcuts. Number 2 is discipline, a way of behaving that shows a willingness to follow or obey certain rules. Number 3 is desire, and that's to want something in your life or business that you do not have or something you want to enhance. Number 4 is intensity. And I think intensity is really important because that's the difference between going through the motions, you know, and having passion or intensity to get it done. And we all have days when sometimes you feel like you're going through the motions, but if you really have true intensity, you know, you become unstoppable. You're like, as the athletes call it, you're in the zone. You're Michael Phelps before a race. And I think if you ever watched the Olympics and you saw Michael Phelps before he raced, you know, he is in a deep state of intensity. And my belief is he's probably visualizing touching the end of the pool, number 1, right? And when you're an athlete at that level, I mean, I personally have seen him win by such small margins, but he just always seems to eke it out. I don't know how he sees people in the pool. I don't know how it happens, but it's like 3/100ths of a second. Like the human eye can't even see that distance, but he does it. That's what I call intensity. Work ethic. A job or activity that has a person doing something regularly in order to earn money, that's work. An ethic is a belief that something is important and possible to actively do through work that you accomplish and do each day. I think I might have a little bit of a word salad in that, but competitive. Is anybody on this call competitive? I think everybody is, right? I don't think there's anybody everybody that's not competitive is still sleeping. But competitive is a strong desire to win or be the best at something. And that something is, you know, real estate, it's helping people, and we are damn competitive about it. Results, to be caused by something else that you're doing. A result, to be caused by something that you're doing. Focus, a main purpose or intention. Risk, the change or loss based on the choices that we make. Dedication, a feeling of very strong support for someone or something. Patience, able to maintain calm or not become annoyed when dealing with problems or people. Positive thinking, thinking about good qualities of someone or something that you do. Learning, the activity of gaining knowledge or skill by studying, practicing, or being taught by someone. skill, the ability to do something that comes from training or experience, mindset, the particular way of thinking or attitude of something or someone. And of course, since this is Mike Ferry, number 16 is coaching, a private teacher who gives lessons on a particular subject. Now, that was the foundation for my topic today. And of course, I have to put my own spin on it, my own thoughts and words. And the power words for success, in my opinion, is mindset. It's probably one of the most important. Okay. A positive state of mind that's empowering and solution oriented. A positive state of mind that's empowering and solution oriented. If you have that, you can accomplish almost anything. And Sandy, whatever issue you have, there's 37 ways to get that done, and there's probably a million ways to fail at that.
Yes.
And the people with the positive mindset focus on those 37 ways to get that completed, and have your client be a raving fan. I think it was Jack Welch who said that the only sustainable difference that anyone or any business can have is the ability to learn at a faster pace than your competition.
Okay.
The only sustainable advantage anybody or any organization can have is their ability to learn at a faster pace than their competition. Because if you're number one, you know, how many times in history do we see people who become complacent, right? They're number one, but they stop learning, they stop focusing, they stop doing what got them there. And somebody else is just going 1 mile an hour faster. But in, 5 years or 10 years, they've been passed. And you have what we call momentum, right? Momentum is hard to stop, right?
Mm.
I actually put that in here. Like when you're looking at like sports, for example, if a team's winning 6-0, and then the other team, ties the score at 6-6, right? Who has momentum and who do you think is more likely to win that game? It's the team that got the last 6 runs because they have the momentum. Everything is going their way. And that happens in our business as well.
I think it's that many agents get complacent, and what worked for them in the past, they think it's going to continue to work for them in the present. And what you mentioned, out of it all, mindset stands out to me, Rob, because if you wake up with that positive mindset and you have the goals in front of you, there's nothing that you can't get through, like you said. And I think that people need to remember that and maybe read something every morning. I keep something next to my mirror in the bathroom, and I read it every day. And I send out these plants, these money trees, and I send out a little message that I read to my money trees. And I have some big money trees that have been growing for a decade, and it works. You gotta believe in always learning and growing and showing up with that to your clients. I think again that if you become too complacent, it's that team, like you said, that's coming back with the momentum. They're gonna always beat that team that had the first 6 points.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And when you talked about like your money trees, David, and complacency, I think we all need to self-evaluate and maybe look at everything, not just this is what we do, but what am I doing well? What can I do differently? What can I do better? And the analysis I'm going to give you is a lot of times, governments and organizations, they do their budgeting model based upon taking last year's model and applying a percentage increase to it normally. And that's the budget for the next year, instead of evaluating your time budget or your financial budget for the business by what's giving you the best results, right? Looking at everything and saying, does this deserve to have my hour a week? Does this deserve to have my $500 a month investment, right? Basically zero-based budgeting where nothing is entitled. Everything is justified on a periodic basis. Maybe that's quarterly, maybe that's monthly, but it shouldn't be more than annually, where you look at how are you spending your time and money. And the only thing that the thing that is most sacred in our business is not money, it's our time. Okay, because you can make a lot of money, but you can't get time back. So we have to make sure that we're using our time, optimally, and we're being very stingy with who and what gets our time. Okay, and that it gives us a return.
Hey, Rob, I just wanted to add that I believe it was Tom Ferry who I heard say that the most successful agents are the ones who solve the most problems. So that's the challenge. And I always had that in my mind when a problem would arise and I would figure out the solution. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, it's really interesting, but does sometimes a problem make you feel good when you figured it out and you solved it?
Absolutely.
I'll just share with you something that's completely unrelated to this, but it's relevant to how I think, right? And I know I see Howard's on the Hollywood Squares right next to me, and Howard, when we were trying to button up the transaction for Arizona, I was in Montreal and I was taking my data from Tim Hortons. But the day before I was scheduled to head back, I had an experience that was very frustrating. And that experience was my RV starter wouldn't turn. So I couldn't get this 40-foot bus on the road, and I'm in Montreal in August, and I call the dealership and they say, oh, we're closed for 2 weeks. I'm like, you don't want to hear what I said. So I went to truck stops. I would consider myself to have been resourceful. I took the vehicle that we were driving behind it. I went to truck repair shops, auto dealerships where they sold parts, and obviously they don't regularly stock a starter for a Spartan chassis. So I called the place I bought it. They sent me to the warranty line. They said, sir, you're out of warranty. So I started looking at other options, and then I called back and I said, if I was under warranty, what would you do when the shop is closed and there's no dealership within miles here, and how am I going to get it there? He's like, oh, well, we use this website, Truck Down. I'm like, cool, I'm going to use it. So I found this website. I found a resource to identify the part. And long story short is I got a mobile repair person to come out and install the part, and made it home, didn't leave my vehicle in Montreal, and found a solution. Now, my wife said that you'll feel better when you get it solved, and that kind of inspired me to figure out how to not have to fly home or drive back, figure out how am I going to coordinate getting it repaired, tow the thing, whatever. I was just solution oriented. And I got to be honest, I did feel pretty good about when I got it resolved. I even took a selfie with the guy underneath there fixing it on a mobile, because it was a good story. And I think that's something that we need to use in our business is, there's always problems in transactions, and the winners figure out how to get it done. And even if it's something that you're like, how in the world am I gonna possibly solve this? The client doesn't see it. I think, Tiffany, you made the word Debbie Downer. There has to be another description for the person who's like, oh my God, this is a panic. How am I ever gonna get this done? And then they try to portray themselves as a hero when they get it solved, right? And they think that you're going to really appreciate that, but I don't think they do appreciate it. I think they just think that that individual is a scattered, ill-confident, ill-prepared participant in the industry. They don't think that you're a hero. They're like, I don't want to go through that again. That was too dramatic for me. We all, like, everybody can relate to that, right? And we hate that person, don't we? You know, one thing I think is often overlooked, which is a really, really, really powerful word. It's called gratitude, right? If you start every day being grateful, and I'm not trying to be corny and say, oh, everything's great, but if you start from being grateful, your day usually winds up being better. Because there's always a lot to be grateful for. And even if you're grateful for what's going to happen during that day, it certainly puts you in a better mindset, you know, a more productive, a more solution-oriented mindset to get things done.
Rob, I
Okay.
agree with you. I have my younger daughter. She always, mommy, you always, every day, you have to start your day what you are grateful for. And it really, it put peace in my heart. I'm so proud of her that she feeling that way.
Yeah, I mean, you're a role model, and people look at you and they pay attention to how you behave, and people don't want to be around people that are scattered, that are ill prepared, that lack confidence, and here's another one that's really important: integrity, right? Like if you have integrity,
Yes,
you're gonna be trusted.
absolutely.
People feel, you know, I don't care who you are, if you're telling a partial truth, you know, I don't think you're pulling it off. But if you have integrity and you find your voice where you can say, David, you know, if I can have permission to be 100% honest with you, I really don't think that's the right strategy. Here's what might happen. Like, you can feel the confidence and the integrity in my voice, as opposed to if I'm just, you know, going along with what you're saying just to hitch a deal, right? To get a client.
No, absolutely. I think that everybody on this call that's successful has a feeling of gratitude when they wake up, I believe, and they're solution driven, and they always come. It's not what happens to us in a transaction. It's how we respond. And the clients that refer us to their friends and family and their next client, it's because of how we reacted to a bump in the road when it came up. And I think as we get older and we get more and more experience in the business, you realize like it's how we respond, and that's why agents want to work on our teams. And I mean, 100%.
And I see Mark Feingold on the Hollywood Squares there, and you know, Mark and I have had a couple of experiences where, you know, we probably didn't have a layup, but for the actions that we took and the way that we communicated, there are people who accomplished their real estate goals. Okay, and I'll call that influential, effective communication, right? And for me, you know, sales just has like a little bit of a dirty feeling to it, right? You're a salesperson, because I think the mindset that we have, if I say salesperson, what comes to mind for anybody?
Used cars.
Anybody else have anything different? Pretty much used cars comes up, right? And that's like the worst sales situation, I think, that's out there, right? That we regularly encounter. So I think we need to position ourselves, and we need to have the right mindset. And sales is not about, you know, gimmickry, tricks, manipulation, none of that. Okay, sales is about educating, influencing, success, effectiveness. There's multiple sales in every sale, right?
Sincerity.
So we have to, you know, work with our client, okay, buyer or seller, to price or right, make the right offer. We have to communicate with the other broker on the transaction, right? You have to make the sale there, because their opinion is probably more important than the black and white, the down payment and contingencies. Would you not agree? Right? If you have a good conversation, you convince the other agent, 9 out of 10 times, they're going to convince their client to do that, right? So that's another sale. And then we have to have the other agent sell the homeowner or the buyer on why that our terms and conditions are in their best interest. We have to influence them. You know, I think another good word is bold, right? You know, success is not for the meek. Success is for the bold. Doesn't mean the arrogant, but it means the bold. You know, success finds the intellectually curious, the creative and imaginative, the people who find different solutions. Right? Because if we're playing with yesterday's or a decade ago playbook, you know, we're going to be stale. All right, we're not going to be able to help our clients to that optimal degree.
Rob, can I throw a comment in here, please?
Sure.
You know, to me, the professionalism that is earned, the recognition of our professionalism is generally earned after the contract is written and during the process that it takes to close it. I've often thought over many years that the easiest part of a transaction is finding a home and writing a contract. The hardest part is getting it to close and doing so in a style that leaves the buyer or seller totally appreciative of the skill set that we bring to the table. And you've got a good transaction when at the end your client is fully appreciative of everything that you've done through this myriad of skills that we all try to teach our agents on a day-to-day basis. Unfortunately, it's not something that we can learn in one mastermind meeting. It's an accumulation of skills, contacts, problem solving, etc. But we've often said in our company that almost a third of our transactions that are put into escrow never close. And you go back and look at why is that? Well, most likely on the other side of the, I'm sorry, my phone was ringing. You know, somebody's dropped the ball. Somebody has not executed their control of client expectations. So the more we work on our skill set, all of the things that you're mentioning here today, the better we become, and the more we dispel the rumor or the belief that we're just salespeople. I believe that there's about 15 or 20% of the licensed agents that are true, seasoned, veteran, professional salespeople. And I'm not even sure how many of the rest of them actually want to be. But I'm not worried about them. I'm worried about our family and how we execute and how well we adapt to these difficult situations. So what you're talking about today is really spot on. And you know, it's how we, you know, the thing really bothers me about the myth of salespeople. If people actually knew how hard our producers work to make their home dreams come true, they would never accuse us of just being a salespeople or a salesperson. So that's my 2 cents.
And Howard, a couple of things that you've inspired me to share. Number one is if people could see through you and knew how much you cared about getting it through, getting the transaction completed for their benefit, and that you didn't have commission breath, it would change the way that they behave with you. And I put that rhetorically, but if you're on video, shake your head if you agree. If people knew that your sole focus was to meet their real estate need, right? And it was not about worrying about the commission check, the commission rate, any of that stuff, would they behave and respond to you differently? And if it is yes, then shake your head because, and if it's not, and you want to ask me, I want to press that because that goes down to integrity and trust and communication, right? And if you're not communicating with absolute confidence and integrity, you know, people are going to have 1% or 10% of reservation in that conversation, and you're not going to be as effective as you can be. Number two that I picked up from Howard, you just flew back from South Dakota, right, Howard?
Yep.
Now let's assume that a gauge on the plane, you read an error message, right? Would you want the pilot saying, "Hey, everybody, fasten your seatbelts. We have an engine trouble message on engine 2. I've never seen this before. I hope it works out, but just keep your seatbelt on." How would that go?
Nope,
Very well.
nope.
It would not. I mean, it's laughable, but yet in the industry, you know, how many times like do we do that on a transaction, right? Hey, you know, I've never seen this before here. We might have some, like, a true professional figures it out, right? You don't try to be a hero by making problems. Yes,
You
the
can often,
alarms.
you can often tell either a newer agent or just an agent that doesn't have any of these skill sets when something pops up they've just never seen before, and you know that they're going to react and call their client immediately. And you would never do that. You would take time to figure it out and get back to the client with a solution. You know, and like you talk about a pilot, you know, you hear pilots in the worst moments, they sound cool as a cucumber because they have so many hours under their belt, and that's their job to keep calm for hundreds plus passengers. It's our job to make sure that the transaction gets done for the whole party. Yeah, it sucks sometimes to do the job of the other agent, but Howard, you mentioned a third of your deals falling through. To me, that's mind blowing, and I wonder, you know, I see a lot of agents not wanting to do the job of the other agent. That makes sense, but we have to do whatever it takes to bring the deal to fruition. Just seems like a really high number. I can't even fathom.
That number will vary, but
Right.
maybe it's less now that we're not in a flurry of uncontrolled activity. you
Okay.
know. But the point to be made is that you're right. We should never lose a deal because of client expectations not being met. If we have to, I know our agents jump in way too many times and do the job of both sides of the transactions just to make it come together. What's discouraging is when the other agent, the most timely thing they do is making sure that they get their commission check on time. You know, that's the part that really bothers me, you know.
Yeah,
I know that our agent did both sides of the transaction just to make it happen.
I often think about the agent, especially since I do a lot of referral business. I often think I want the agent who referred me not only to get paid as soon as possible, but to be informed and know every step of the transaction, where we're at and how the client's doing, the relationship we've built. And it goes back to the beginning, building a relationship with the other agent on every side of the deal, so that everything is just calm and a smooth transaction. That's my goal every time.
So let me make a comment to where this is going. Sometimes, you know, agents try to be a hero and share with the customer all the things that they do or that they did for the other person, and they're flapping their gums, right? Talking about everything they did. But honestly, I think that the public doesn't want to hear you flap your gums. I don't think your customers want to hear that. They just want to know that the job was done well. And when you do the work for the other agent, you probably can adopt that client because they know what's going on. Okay, they see that you're carrying the weight for somebody else. It reminds me of the story that Robert Garver talked about when you went to the seller's house to present an offer, and the homeowner said, "Hey, how come you don't get dressed? Why are you in sweatpants and he's in a suit?" They noticed that, right, Robert?
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, that other agent is he's with another company, but we're pretty good friends, and we were sitting in my backyard just the other day, and he brought that up. And he said that those people who were his clients never let him forget it. So yeah, it was really very funny when they said it as I was sitting at the table across the table from him.
So the people, maybe we don't give our clients credit for understanding what we do at times. And I think the person that has to keep explaining how great they are probably is doing a disservice to themselves and to the industry and to their client.
I think that there's a lot of people in this business, Rob, who are capable of writing a contract, but I've always felt that it's the art of keeping the deal together and being able to navigate all the issues that sets us apart from the others. I really think that is really important.
Especially when the inspections and the appraisal come through.
Yeah.
And Fran, but we should be grateful that these challenges happen. Otherwise,
Oh, yeah.
we would get paid next to nothing.
Yeah. No,
Instead
we
of,
have to work through them.
instead of being bitter that, other people in the industry they're not carrying their fair share. Well, let's be grateful because now this gives us an abundant path to more and more success.
Correct.
Right.
Can I
I
add
agree.
something?
Go ahead.
All right. So your client like to feel he's so proud of his agent. Oh, this is my agent. So when you meet someone, when you go outside, this is me. I always like to dress for success all the time. And I meet my client in the shopping center in everywhere, but your client want to feel they are very proud of you. Look, my client, she's dressed up, she's professional, So it does have a great effect on your client for sure. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. So I'm going to kind of share this point. I was talking to one of your colleagues, an awesome agent who was selling a home I'll just say Florida. It was in Florida. It was a listing that they took for $2.8 million. It was probably a $2.5 million property, but the seller insisted that they overprice it. Market softened. They've been chasing the market down. And the agent's frustrated. They've invested a lot of time and money, and they see that the home seller is losing out, right? And they're not able to connect with them at a level to be successful. And my conversation with the agent was, if you were able to have a more effective communication strategy with your client and they trusted you implicitly, would they have made that same decision? And the answer was no. Okay. And I talk about this at times. There are no ugly baby syndrome, right? Nobody ever thinks that their child is ugly because they're emotionally attached. And parents have, chemicals in their body that make them love their kids, and they can't be objective. That same principle applies to homes that we have. We can never be objective. Even in the industry, when we sell our own homes, it's hard for us to be objective as to where the value of our own property is. So my 16 power words and the philosophies we're talking about here, in my belief, could have landed this agent with a better starting point and a better outcome early on because of trust, because of communication, because of having a different strategy, right? If you were learning based and somebody says, I want to do something that's not to their best interest, I might even say, you know what? If it was Howard, I'm not the right agent for you if this is the strategy that you want, because honestly, I can't put my head on the pillow at night knowing that I'm risking several $100,000s of your retirement money, right? I personally, I wouldn't be comfortable doing that. Now, if there was a way that you could take $200,000 from your client and never get caught, I don't think anybody here would ever do that. But what's the difference from costing them $200,000 other than there's nobody that benefits from it? Think about it. So, Mr. Holler, if I stole $200,000 from you on a sale of a property and you didn't know it, I would be, well, number one, I'd never do it, but I would have so much guilt, it would be unbearable, right? And if you got paid $200,000 extra and the client didn't notice it, you would have to return that money and you would never have malintent to take it. Yet somehow the industry feels it's acceptable to allow somebody to lose $200,000 by making marketing mistakes that are avoidable by clearer communication.
Well,
I'm putting that out there. I want to hear what you guys have to say.
I have to sleep well at night, so I can never do that. There was a situation in Delray Beach on a listing I had for $7 million. A person called me directly. I think it was Realtor.com or Zillow. At the time, I was doing a lot of leads and ads on those sites. And I remember talking to the sellers and before we went to market and talking about how if I sold it myself, I would obviously do something better for them and not charge them 6%. All of our listings are at 6%. And usually it's split 3 and 3. But I said, no, I'm not going to take. And I could have taken more. I could have walked away with a lot more money on that transaction. But, to be, ethical and to be, the person I am, I would never do that. I mean, that's another way to get them to net more money. And I would never take money from my client. And it's
so David, that point there, I think, is probably pretty universal with everybody, right? I don't think people are going to be dishonest, be deceptive with their pricing, because I know virtually everybody on this call, and you wouldn't be here if that was the mindset that you had. However, some of us feel it's acceptable to allow somebody to engage in a failed strategy just to make sure that they don't lose the business. It happens a lot more outside of our organization, but sometimes it may happen in our organization. The old buying the listing strategy, right? It never works, right? Gary Greenacre, how long have you been in the business, Mr. Greenacre?
42 years.
42 years. Now, have you ever, well, I shouldn't, ever might be a strong word, but is it a smart bet to grossly overprice a house for the vast majority of home sellers?
Oh, not at all. It's
What normally happens like 101% of the time?
they're unhappy because the job's not getting done.
And then what do? Do they lower the price?
Usually lower the price, but the comment earlier on, they end up chasing the market down instead of being out in front of it.
Yeah, and a lot of people, a lot of homeowners have a belief that's inconsistent with the market, and the belief is like this, and I can't do it without giving you the visuals. Gary, I'm not going to give my house away, right? Have you ever met that guy or that lady?
You bet.
Hey, Gary, I'm not in any rush. You ever met that guy or lady?
Yep.
Hey, Gary, I can wait for the right buyer.
Yep. Well,
all of those, in my opinion, have various flaws to them. Because even if the right buyer comes along and it takes 3.5 months, how are they going to go about making an offer? They're going to say, Gary is desperate. I'm going to lowball him because it's been on the market with 2 price reductions, right? Because it goes this way. It's almost like gravity. It happens all the time. Yet sometimes we just say, all right, I can't convince Gary to do the right thing. I can't inspire him. I can't lead him. So I'm just going to accept his premise of overpricing it, and I'll deal with it later. horrible strategy, in my opinion.
It's exercise. I call it an exercise in destruction. When you do that, you're not only doing the seller a disservice, you're doing yourself a disservice, because there's nothing more that upsets us than our sellers or a buyer calling to complain and constantly nagging. You erode your relationship. You have to have the courage to tell the truth and to just walk away. I remember when you walked away, when you were with an agent, Rob, and you walked away from a listing,
Yep.
and then the people thought about it and called you back.
Colleen, I think it has to do with scarcity versus abundant mindset. It, if you're not prepared to walk away from a listing and not sign it up, I mean, then you're in the wrong business. I think too many agents have 5+ listings that are overpriced, and they're all chasing the market down. And I'm not talking about in our organization, but I see it in the market all the time. I can't tell you how many listings I walked away from in the last year or two because the sellers, I knew I would just be in a argumentative state for way too much of the transaction, chasing the market down. It's not what I want to do. It's not why I'm in the business. I want
And,
successful relationships.
and not only that, but your peers see it.
Exactly.
You discredit your professionalism. We
Absolutely.
have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. It's
Yes.
part of our service to both the customer and to ourselves.
Um, yeah, so is anyone starting to see how all these things are interconnected, that you can't basically just, you can't have a confidence without doing the homework, right? You can't have a positive state of mind if you're uncertain about the outcome, right? So all these things kind of come together, and it's part of the whole package that we have. I'm going to, I think this is it might be a creed, or it might be, like a series of rules that Tom Ferry or Mike Ferriates do. Read my business plan at least once a week. I'm guilty of not doing that. Does anybody read their business plan once a week or more?
Once
You
a quarter.
probably will be more effective if you go back and you look at it. Recommit to your motivations, family, physical, mental, spiritual, and financial health. Like, recommit to those. Recommit to maintaining a positive attitude. Recommit to the discipline of following your schedule. This is a big one. Recommit to keeping your personal life out of your business. All right. If your clients know about your personal issues, I'd say your professionalism is flailing, right? I don't think they need to know that. I don't think your peers need to know all of your. I think you need to compartmentalize things so that you can be effective at the time that you spend, working. Okay. Keep emotions between the lines. Okay. This is I think somebody put the anti-dramatic part of the business, right? Nobody wants drama. If you want drama, watch Netflix. If you want to, have the business, let's keep it professional. Let's keep it drama free.
Hey, Rob, just to pinpoint that, the comment that I got more often from my clients was the fact that they would say to me, no matter what was going on in this transaction, we knew that when we spoke with you, you were so calm that you put us at ease and made it much easier for us to move forward. And that's, David alluded to that earlier also as well, and you did when you talked about, told the story about the pilot. But that's really a key thing, and it doesn't take a lot of practice to get that right. Just stay calm and know that you're going to find a solution. And that's what your clients need to know.
Oh, so Robert, I'm adding something to my sheet here and I'm calling it be intentional. Okay, because you might have something that you're like, this is a huge problem. This FHA buyer load, like we've all had these problems. But if you call your client and you want to be dramatic and say, oh my God, I've never seen this before. It looks like this deal is going south. Do you want to put it like, that's the pilot, hitting the panic button. Nobody's going to benefit from that. As a matter of fact, I would never hire you again if that was the way that you behaved, even if you did get it done, right? So, thank you for sharing that. Develop your skills at the highest level, okay? And I don't care who you are, how good you are, there are things that you can learn, because if you're complacent with where you are, somebody's going to pass you. They're going 1 mile an hour faster on the freeway. It might be, you're driving from New Jersey to Arizona. They might pass you on the New Jersey Turnpike, or they might pass you, on the 101 in Arizona. But they're eventually going to pass you if they're going 1 mile an hour faster. So if you're not continuing to develop your skills, you're going to become irrelevant at some point. Work really hard when you're working so that you're going to have time off. Because if you consider yourself working all the time, and this is a rhetorical question, but how many hours do you work? Write that number down, or put that number in your head. And then how many hours do you effectively work? Right? How much of the time that you spend working is truly effective? Recommit what you're doing to your accountability partner, and always do the right thing for your client. So if you always do the right thing 100% of the time, you don't have to think about it, right? If somebody wants to overprice a listing, or they want to underpay us, we need to have a way of communicating that's effective and leads us to doing the right thing every time, right? So if you don't have any lies, you have nothing to worry about, right? Even if they're white lies, tell the truth 100% of the time, you sleep better at night, and you have a better outcome. I used to think it was luck. Wow, I'm lucky 3 or 4 times. But after a while, that luck winds up being mindset and skill. Your luck is mindset and skill. Okay, if you have tonight's the World Series, you have a batter that is on a positive hitting streak, right? They're on a streak. They're doing great. And then another person's in a slump. It's the same batter. It's the same it's the same batter, right? But the only difference is the mindset. Unless there's an injury, which is usually not an injury. But if you're on a hot streak, it's here. If you're slumping, where is it? It's here, right? You had 2 bad plays, 2 bad at bats. Now you're second guessing whether you'll ever get another base hit, right?
Can I share something about luck?
Yeah.
Luck, that's what Oprah, she mentioned, and I believe that. It is when preparation met an opportunity.
Yep. And I'm gonna wrap up this session with a bow here by asking Robert Garver, when you were on the leadership team and an agent's in a slump, even a great agent, do they like, where am I ever going to get my next listing? I'm so concerned, right? And then a week later, they have 3 listings,
Right.
right? It's mindset, right? When you're striking out, or when you're not in the mode of getting more business, you second guess yourself. You're like, oh my God, like I might have to get a part-time job, Robert. I have no listings. And then 10 days later, they're like, oh, can you help me input these? I have 7 listings this week. It's
Yes.
all in the mind. It's the mindset, folks.
So I
So,
want to point out also in the chat that Glenn Baker highly recommended a book that supports this mastermind called The Obstacles is in the Way
Okay,
by Ryan Holiday.
I'm gonna put that in our notes and wish everybody a happy, productive weekend. I hope I made a small contribution to your mindset by, you know, empowering, giving you some empowering words and thoughts.
You
You
always
did.
do.
Everybody have a productive, great weekend. Thanks for
Thanks, Rob.
sharing your
Have a
time with
nice
us.
weekend, Rob. Thank
Have a
you.
nice
Bye-bye.
weekend.
Guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.